Today we're taking a look at the best handheld insect macro photography setup that money can buy. I often get asked by people what's the best setup that they can get for macro photography, and the very first question I ask is, what's your budget? Well, what if you've got a very high budget? We're going to take a look at the best macro photography setup for handheld insect photography. This video has been made possible by OM Systems, and I thank them for their cooperation. They have sent me some gear to take a look at. If you've got lots of money, or you're silly with money, or you want the best you can get, this is the gear that I would recommend you buy. Let's talk about the camera body first. We are looking at the OM Systems OM1 MK2. Now, we've seen this camera on the channel before. I've done camera comparisons with the OM1, the first model, and the EM1 MK2, and I still stand by that video. If you're coming from the EM1 MK2, it's a great upgrade. Not so much from the OM1 to the OM1 MK2 for macro photography. We'll talk about that in the future. But if you are doing wildlife photography, it is a good upgrade as well. So for anyone who doesn't know about this camera, or they're not familiar with OM Systems, this is a micro four thirds sensor. For anyone who's not familiar with micro four thirds, the sensor size is 1/4 the surface size of a full frame sensor, and is half the size when measured diagonally. And that gives us some added benefits when it comes to macro photography. The main benefit is you get a perceived magnification boost. It's not optical. If you have your full frame sensor and you crop in, effectively that's what we're doing. To get the same field of view you would have with your full frame camera, you would have to back off, which increases your depth of field. So it's great for magnification, it's great for depth of field. The image stabilization is absolutely phenomenal in this camera. And of course, one of the important things that this camera can do is in-camera focus stacking and bracketing while triggering an external flash. And many other cameras can't do that. I do believe the R5 Mark II can do that. If anyone out there has an R5 Mark II with a flash, do please test it and let me know. But I have heard through the grapevine that it can do that. But this is one of the very few cameras that does it very well. It's the little things that make this camera good. For instance, on some cameras you can do focus bracketing by pressing your shutter to start it, but then you can't stop it by pressing the shutter. It's little things like that. This camera ticks all the boxes for macro photography. And it's not just macro, you can do wildlife photography on it. It's absolutely phenomenal at wildlife photography. Keep an eye on the channel for that. At the price point, it's a very good camera. So I'll leave a link in the description if you want to see the comparison with this camera and previous models, and to get my true feelings on this camera, which again I still stand by. Pairing in that, we have this beauty. This is the 90mm macro lens from OM Systems. This is a 2x macro lens. So to get the same field of view or magnification, depends on how you look at it, it's very technical, but to get the same field of view on a full frame camera, you would have to have a 4x magnification lens. First thing I'm going to do is take off the lens hood, because we are going to be using flash photography and a diffuser. We're not going to need that lens hood, so I'll get rid of that. Well, this lens is an absolute phenomenal lens. I have tested this equipment previously. I've tested it for f-stops, ISO, noise range, and they perform great. This lens performs great at the sharpest between f6.3 and 8. You can go up to about f14 before diffraction is a real problem. If you leave it wide open at 3.5, it's a little bit soft, but I don't think it's going to be that much that people are going to notice in your images. So again, it comes down to personal preference. This is a significant upgrade from the 60mm in that it is a 2x. We have a focus clutch. When it's set to the front, it's in autofocus, and then we can pull it back to set it into manual focus without touching any buttons on the camera. That is fabulous. We have image stabilization, and we have an L function button. What I've mapped this button to do is focus bracketing. So if I'm holding the camera like this and I'm taking single shots and I notice the insect doesn't move, without taking my eyes or my hands off the camera, I can just hit that button to go into focus bracketing, and I can start taking a stack. Now, there is one thing to note about this lens. There is a focus limiter switch right here. To get the 2x magnification on this lens, you have to set it to S macro, which I'm assuming stands for super macro. I have come across a couple of people with this lens that didn't realize that, and they have it set in the middle, which will only give you 1x magnification. So if you want to get closer, make sure that switch is set to S macro. Now, this lens is bigger. It is heavier than the 60mm. If size and weight is one of your main contributing factors to what gear you choose to use, that could be a factor. But again, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about price. We're talking the best. And before anyone says in the comments, I will be comparing both cameras on a comparison video. But this is an absolutely beautiful lens to use. On top of that, we're going to be placing a powerhouse of a flash. This is the Godox V860 version 3 for Olympus systems. The O at the end stands for your camera system. So if you have Canon, you would have a C at the end. So that's what that stands for. And N for Nikon, S for Sony. So do please make sure you buy one that is compatible with your camera. This, again, compared to the V350, is big, but it is more powerful and it can keep up. And so far, with the testing I've done on this camera setup, it hasn't produced any blank images where the flash hasn't fired because it hasn't recharged. So it is an absolute powerhouse. And from my testing, it looks like we're getting roughly 10 frames a second with this setup. And on a plus point, if you look at the front here, just there, it has a modeling light, which we can turn on. And you can't see me. So on a plus point, you haven't got to strap an LED torch to your diffuser if you've got this particular flash. Now, I haven't done battery tests on that, so I don't know how much it'll run down the battery, but in my testing and my out and about general walking around, it hasn't really affected the battery life of this flash. But I may purchase a battery for the flash, that way I don't have to worry about it. Talking about the flash, to diffuse the light, we're going to be using a Cygnustech Diffuser. So to place that on here, we're going to put this rubber band onto our flash. We'll put the diffuser onto the flash. And then when you buy a Cygnustech, it comes with some step-up rings for your lens. So when you tell them what lens and flash you're using, they're custom made for that particular setup. Pull that tight. Making sure that our little bungee cord here, just there, is not in the way of our clutch system, because obviously we want to be able to use that clutch system, which we are free. And again, let me just show you the LED light on the flash there. So that LED light will help with focusing, because when you're getting down to 2:1 macro, you're getting up close to your subjects, you're going to lose a lot of light, so that will help a lot. That's a nice addition to that flash. When you buy the Cygnustech, he'll also send you a lens cover that will pop onto the front of there, so you don't have to take the step-up ring off your lens to put your lens cap on, which is brilliant. So there we go. Let's take a look at the prices. I'm not going to call them out because, again, they do change. Right, so if you have got the money and you want the best, this is the best in my opinion. The OM Systems OM1 MK2, the 90mm 2x macro lens, the Godox V860 version 3, and a Cygnustech Diffuser. I've had a quick play with this out in the field, and it is an absolute monster. It is fabulous. The image quality is really good. The speed is really good. So the only thing I did notice is it is a lot heavy. So in comparison, here is my old setup. This is the EM1 Mark II with the 60mm macro, and this is the new one. This is the OM1 with the 90. So you can see there, your size difference just there. So there is a size and weight difference with this new setup. But if you want the best that money can buy for handheld insect macro photography, this is the setup to go for. And subscribe if you're looking forward to me putting these two together head to head in a video to find out which is the ultimate king of macro photography. This, when set up, will give you at least 10 frames a second when focus bracketing handheld to give you results like this. And if you're interested in those results, that is a basic setup you can use for photographing your pet invertebrates. So jumping spiders, stick insects, tarantulas. In the next video, we're going to take this setup and we are going to do an indoor shoot to give it a good test. And I'm going to show you the easiest way to photograph your pet invertebrates. So subscribe if you're looking forward to that video. That's where I'm going to leave this video though. Again, I want to thank OM Systems for their help and their collaboration in making this possible. My name's Stewart, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for sticking to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, then please subscribe and click the like button. It really does help out the channel. I want to thank my Patreon supporters for their continued support in supporting me and this channel. If you're interested in joining Patreon, then check in the description below this video for a link to Patreon. If you want to continue watching my macro journey, then click one of the videos in front of you now.